Have you ever said yes to something, a favor, a job, a relationship, and felt a knot in your stomach like you were betraying yourself? I've been there more times than I can count. For years, I thought saying yes to everyone was the key to being loved, respected, even successful. I'd take on extra work, agree to plans I dreaded, and nod along to keep the peace, all while feeling emptier inside. It was like I was giving pieces of myself away, and I didn't know how to stop. Then I discovered Carl Jung's teachings, and they showed me something radical. Saying no isn't just a refusal. It's an act of self-love that can change your life. Jung, the brilliant mind behind depth psychology, believed we're often trapped by what he called the collective unconscious, those invisible societal rules that tell us to please others, to fit in, to sacrifice our own energy. It's like we're handed a script that says, your worth comes from what you do for others. But Jung saw another truth. Within each of us is a shadow, the parts we hide, our fears, our needs, even our desire to put ourselves first. For me, my shadow held the fear of being seen as selfish. I thought saying no would make me unlovable. Jung's wisdom flipped that on its head, saying no to what drains you is how you reclaim your power. Let me share a moment that brought this home. A few years ago, I was juggling a demanding job and a friend who constantly leaned on me for emotional support. I'd stay up late answering her calls even when I was exhausted because I didn't want to let her down. One night, I hit a wall. I was burned out, resentful, and barely recognized myself. Sitting with a cup of tea, I asked, why am I doing this? The answer wasn't about loyalty. It was about fear. I was afraid of disappointing her, of being that person who sets limits. That's when I realized I was living for everyone but me. Jung's ideas helped me see this isn't just my story, it's universal. Think of Neo in the Matrix, plugged into a system that defined his reality, unaware he could break free. We're all a bit like Neo, caught in expectations that drain our energy. Jung called the journey to break free individuation, becoming your true self by honoring your own needs. Saying no is a cornerstone of that journey. It's not about being rude or selfish. It's about protecting your energy so you can live authentically. I remember the first time I said no with intention. My boss asked me to take on another project, one I knew would push me past my limits. My heart pounded as I said, I'm sorry, I can't take this on right now. I braced for judgment, but instead, she nodded and moved on. Something shifted in me that day. I felt lighter, stronger, like I'd reclaimed a piece of myself. Jung would say that's what happens when you face your shadow, when you stop hiding from the fear of disappointing others and start honoring your own boundaries. Why is saying no so hard? Jung believed it's because we're conditioned to fear rejection. The collective unconscious whispers that saying no will leave us alone, unworthy. But here's the hidden power. When you say no to what drains you, you're saying yes to yourself. You're choosing your energy, your dreams, your peace. And that choice unlocks a strength you didn't know you had. It's like clearing away clutter to reveal the life you're meant to live. What does that life look like? It's not about cutting everyone off or becoming cold. It's about making space for what truly matters. Relationships that uplift you, work that aligns with your values, moments that fill your soul. For me, saying no to that extra project meant I had time to write, something that brought me joy. Jung's teachings suggest that when you protect your energy, you step into your true potential. So, what would it feel like to say no to one thing that's draining you? To choose yourself just for a moment? That's where the power begins, and it's more transformative than you might think. Imagine waking up each day with energy to spare, not because you've cut out all responsibilities, but because you've stopped giving your power away. That's the gift of saying no to what drains you, and Carl Jung's teachings show us why it's so life-changing. When you set boundaries, you're not just managing your time, you're stepping into what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your most authentic self. It's like peeling away layers of obligation to reveal the person you were always meant to be. Let's explore what happens when you embrace this power. First, you integrate your shadow. Jung described the shadow as the parts of you that you've pushed down. Maybe it's the guilt you feel for wanting to prioritize yourself, or the fear of seeming ungrateful. For me, my shadow was tied to a deep need to be liked. I'd say yes to avoid conflict, but it left me resentful. When I started saying no, I had to face that guilt head on. I began journaling, asking, why do I feel selfish for setting limits? What am I really afraid of? The answers were messy, but they were freeing. I realized my need to be liked was holding me back from being true to myself. Jung said, integrating the shadow brings wholeness, and I felt it, a sense of peace that came from accepting all of me, even the parts that felt selfish. Another gift is what Jung called synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that happen when you're aligned with your true self. Think of Santiago in The Alchemist, who found the universe guiding him once he followed his heart. When you say no to what drains you, you make space for what lifts you up. I saw this in my own life. After I started setting boundaries at work, I had energy to join a writing group. Out of nowhere, I met people who shared my passion, a mentor who encouraged me, friends who inspired me. It wasn't luck, it was synchronicity. By protecting my energy, I was inviting the right opportunities into my life. Saying no also builds inner strength. Each time you set a boundary, you're telling yourself, I matter. That's a radical act in a world that often demands your sacrifice. I remember a friend who always asked for favors, rides, errands, you name it. Saying no to her was terrifying, but when I did, I felt a surge of confidence. She was surprised but respected it, and our friendship became more balanced. Jung would say, this is individuation at work. You're defining yourself, not letting others do it for you. Over time, these choices reshape your life. You attract relationships that honor your worth, work that feels meaningful, and moments of joy that recharge you. Let me share a story that drives this home. A woman I met, Lisa, was in her 40s and stretched thin, running a business, raising kids, and saying yes to every community event. She was exhausted, snapping at her family and losing her spark. Inspired by Jung's ideas, she started small. She said no to chairing a fundraiser that didn't excite her. That one choice gave her evenings back. She used the time to paint, a passion she'd buried for years. Her energy returned, her kids noticed her smile, and she even landed a client who loved her art. Lisa's story shows what's possible when you protect your energy. It's not just about you, it's about the light you bring to others. This power doesn't mean saying no to everything. Jung's teachings are about balance, saying no to what dims your spirit so you can say yes to what fuels it. For me, it meant less time on draining tasks and more on writing, connecting, and growing. The ripple effect was undeniable. My relationships deepened, my work felt purposeful, and I felt alive. Jung believed that by honoring yourself, you contribute to the world in a way only you can. So how do you start tapping into this hidden power? It's simpler than you think, and it begins with small, intentional steps that anyone can take. Now that we've seen the strength and freedom that come from saying no, let's get practical. How do you actually do this? Carl Jung's teachings offer a clear path rooted in shadow work, individuation, and listening to your inner truth. These aren't grand gestures, they're small, courageous acts that protect your energy and align you with your true self. Anyone can start, no matter how overwhelmed you feel, and the impact will surprise you. The first step is shadow work. Jung believed the shadow holds the fears and desires we've buried, like the guilt of seeming selfish or the worry of upsetting others. For me, this meant facing my fear of saying no to my friends' constant requests. I started journaling, asking, what stops me from setting boundaries? What do I fear will happen? I wrote without judgment, letting the answers flow. It was uncomfortable, but it showed me my fear wasn't about her. It was about losing approval. Try this. Spend 10 minutes a day writing about why saying no feels hard. Don't censor yourself. Just explore. Jung said this helps you integrate your shadow, making it easier to prioritize yourself without guilt. Next, practice setting boundaries. Jung's concept of individuation is about defining who you are separate from others' expectations. This means saying no to what drains you, kindly but firmly. I remember saying no to a family event I didn't have the energy for. My stomach churned, but I said, I need to rest this time, but let's plan something soon. To my surprise, they understood. Start small. Pick one thing this week, a meeting, a favor that feels draining, and say no with clarity. Notice how it feels. Jung would say, this is you claiming your individuality, step by step. Self-reflection is another key. Jung believed the unconscious speaks through intuition and quiet moments. Every evening I'd ask myself, what drained me today? What would I say no to if I felt safe? At first, the answers were vague, but over time, I saw patterns. I was overcommitting to please others. This helped me make better choices, like declining extra work to focus on my passions. Try this. Set aside 5 minutes daily to reflect. Ask, what's one thing I can say no to tomorrow? Or journal about what energizes you versus what depletes you. If you're open to it, explore your dreams. Jung saw them as messages from the unconscious. Note any symbols or feelings that stand out. Let me share a story to bring this to life. A colleague, Tom, was in his 30s and overwhelmed by work demands. He read about Jung and decided to try shadow work. He journaled about his fear of saying no to his boss, realizing it stemmed from a need to prove himself. He practiced saying no to minor tasks like, I can't take this on, but I'll prioritize my current projects. He also reflected nightly on what drained him. Within months, he had energy to start a side hustle he loved. His boss respected his clarity, and his confidence soared. Tom's story shows how small steps can transform your life. You can start today. Pick one practice, journaling, a single no, or reflection, and try it for a week. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Want to dive deeper? Jung's Man and His Symbols is a great resource. Link in the description. Share your journey with us. What's one thing you said no to recently? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear. These steps are your path to reclaiming your energy, and they're more powerful than you know. Let's bring this journey full circle. Carl Jung's wisdom has shown us that saying no to what drains you isn't just about setting boundaries. It's about embracing your true self. We've explored how the collective unconscious and our shadows keep us tethered to others' expectations, draining our energy and dimming our light. But when you say no, you reclaim that energy, stepping into individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. The steps we've discussed, shadow work, setting boundaries, reflecting on your needs, are simple yet profound, building a life where you thrive. This journey, what Jung called individuation, is about more than saying no. It's about saying yes to your own heart. I still struggle sometimes. Old habits creep in, and I catch myself saying yes out of fear. But each time I journal, set a limit, or pause to listen to myself, I feel stronger, more aligned. It's like Santiago in The Alchemist, discovering his treasure through every choice to follow his path. Saying no doesn't mean you're done. It means you're committed to growing, one boundary at a time. What's beautiful is how this ripples outward. When you protect your energy, you inspire others. I saw this with my friends. As I set boundaries, one left a toxic job. Another started prioritizing her health. Jung believed individuation serves the world. By honoring yourself, you show others what's possible. Imagine a world where we all said no to what drains us and yes to what lights us up. That's the power you're tapping into. So where do you go from here? Keep practicing. Journal about your fears. Say no to one draining thing this week. Reflect on what energizes you. Make these habits part of your life. For more, check out Man and His Symbols, link below, or join our community to connect with others on this path. I want to hear from you. What's one moment you said no to protect your energy? Share it in the comments. Your story might spark someone else's courage. Thank you for being here, for exploring this with me. You deserve a life where your energy is yours, where you shine as your true self. Saying no is just the start. Keep choosing yourself and watch how your world transforms.